Hello, welcome to Interfaith Dialogue on RPTV. We will be discussing yoga and spirituality with our special guest, Andre Talbot. And the interesting thing about Andre was he was a former professional football player for the CFL. Welcome, Andre.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
And could you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I played in the Canadian Football League, professional football, for 10 years.
Yeah.
I won a Grey Cup with the Toronto Argonauts in 2004.
Yeah.
And after my stint in the CFL, I went and did some traveling, and I did my yoga teacher training. And now I opened up a yoga studio and a fitness studio in the East End of Toronto. So I share the practices of yoga, of mindfulness, of health and fitness and movement in my studio in the East End. And I also work for the New Leaf Yoga Foundation here in Regent Park.
Yeah.
And we share yoga-based and mindfulness-based practices and skills with youth here in Regent Park so that they can work with some of the challenges that they have in their life.
So tell us, why did you decide to pursue yoga? You're obviously a football player, so they seem to be two ends of the spectrum. So why would you?
Yeah, they really are. Football is very aggressive, fast and dynamic in nature. Yoga is quiet, it's peaceful, it's slow, right? It's meditative. But I was introduced to yoga through my strength and conditioning coach when I was playing football for the Toronto Argonauts. And there was just something about the practice that kind of clicked with me. It made me feel more at ease, more at peace with myself and with my certain situations that I was involved with. And so I kept going back to the practice. And then back in 2010, I decided I wanted to pursue it a bit further, to study it a bit further, to look a little deeper to what this ancient practice was. And so that's when I did my first teacher training program, which was a 200-hour teacher training program. It was a month away, studying and really sort of looking inward at who I was as a person, at what it means to have a body and to have a mind, and then working on the skills and the tools of yoga and mindfulness to kind of change my perspective a little bit and to create a bit more inner peace. So it's been a very transformative and interesting journey.
Could you describe your experiences as you were in your training as a yoga teacher?
Well, there were many experiences. I think for me the most important experiences was taking time to be quiet and to really look at what I was experiencing within my breath, breathing in and breathing out.
Yes.
How that connected me to my body and allowed me to develop and cultivate a better, more healthy relationship with my body.
Yeah.
And then also how I was experiencing my mind. So how I was experiencing and relating to my thoughts and my moods and my emotions and my ideas and my stories. So having the time and the stillness to just look at what it is to be experiencing all of that gave me opportunity to change how I was relating to my life and how I was relating to my thoughts, relating to my emotions and my moods. So through that, it gave me that opportunity then provided me skills and tools and a framework to be a bit more creative, intelligent with how I was acting, how I was speaking, how I was thinking, and how I was living in the world.
So could you compare and contrast between your life as a pro football player and your life as a yoga instructor as now?
Yeah, sure. So my life as a pro football player, I would say it was very stressful.
Yeah.
I would say that it was, that sport has a very aggressive and violent nature.
Yeah, it is.
And so for me, I think the relationship with my body became unhealthy.
Yeah.
My expectations of my body, how I was treating my body. Yeah. But then also the habit patterns that I was developing in how I acted, in how I spoke, in how I related to other people became unhealthy. And so yoga is a practice of cultivating sort of kindness, non-harm for myself and others, and peacefulness. And I think for me, what I realized is that even though as a youth I loved football and I loved playing it and it gave me so much joy, I realized that for me now in my life, what's more important is sharing practices and tools and skills that allow people to be more at ease, to be more peaceful, to live in a way that is rooted in non-harm or non-violence. And so that's why I stepped away from football, and that's why now I share these practices and these tools with youth and with people at my studio. Yeah.
Could you describe the transition between the college football game and the pro football game, and also compare that to your transition as a student to a teacher in yoga?
I think at the university level, when I was playing football at Wilfrid Laurier University, there was still very much a sort of a joy to the game. Yeah. It wasn't about making money. I wasn't there to make money. Yeah. I was there to learn and to study and to be a student. Of course. But I was also there to be an athlete and just play the game that I loved playing as a kid. And so I had a lot of fun there. The transition to pro football changed. You know, the game at that level becomes a business.
Yes.
And it can be really, really tough. And I'm going from playing with really young adults, you know, adolescents at that age, you know, 17 to 20-year-olds basically, to playing with men, grown men, from, you know, the age of 20 to 40 years old.
Of course, yes.
So I would say that the speed of the game changed dramatically. I would say the size of the players and the strength of the players changed dramatically. But also the culture, the mentality. People were playing for their food, for their housing, for their families, for their living. So it becomes, there's a drastic shift that happened there. And so it changed. That kind of innocence and joy of the game changed quite a bit. As it relates to being a student of yoga and a teacher of yoga, I would say you're always a student. The only thing that changes when you start to share the practice is you try to look at who's there with you, and you try to provide the tools in a way that can be heard. So you try to make it accessible and relevant to who you're sharing the practice with. But in practices like yoga and mindfulness, you're always a student. So you're just constantly learning, you're constantly practicing yourself, you're constantly looking to create greater awareness. And then when you share the practice, you're just trying to make it relevant and accessible to who you're sharing it with.
All right. Well, in terms of yoga, how important is it to be at peace with oneself? How important is it to be have a full body control and be fulfilled spiritually as well as physically and mentally as well?
Well, how important is it to you?
It's about me. I believe it would be of major importance, maybe a bit, but I am not as well versed as you are in terms of how yoga is and how it can affect me. I am not a yoga practitioner, so I will believe I am not a...
Forget about the word yoga, though.
Okay.
Do you feel the world needs more peace, or do you feel it needs something more than that? Do you think the world needs more money, more aggression, more violence, or more peace?
That is a very tough question.
Is it tough?
Well,
what do you really feel in your heart? What do you feel the world needs most?
Well,
more war, violence, more division, or more peace?
Peace is very good, but it's pretty unrealistic as the as the fact that there is war and there's always going to be a struggle, and people need things to live, because that's how people have evolved over time. We come from a people who are scavengers. They are hunter-gatherer people, and they are they are. And we're not better people now. We have not changed. We are still in that mindset. But I appreciate what you're doing, because peace is what is needed in the actual world today. Because with all the violence and thing going on, there's wars, there's poverty, there's things that are unequal, generally because of the it can be in a myriad of things that are influencing this. But yes, I am of agreement that peace is needed, but peace seems to me as a youth very unlikely. But I do appreciate what you're doing
from my perspective, and that's a great answer. And thanks for sharing your thoughts on that.
Thank you.
From my perspective, what I've experienced is that world peace, if we're talking about the world, that might be impossible, because we know human history.
Of course,
we know there's conflict, we know there's division, we know there's war. It's part of our history. But what I experienced in myself is that when I was younger, there was a lot of sort of frustration and stress. There was even anger in me. And what I've begun to realize is that there's practices and there's a way for me to live and be at peace. And for me to engage with the challenges in my life, and for me to be in relationship with people in my life in a peaceful way. And so we don't have to get all big about the thought about the world. You know, there's violence in different parts of the world, and it hurts, and it's sad when we see it on the news reported, all these things that are dividing people, that are separating people, that are creating harm. But if we look internally, we can recognize that I can create some change within myself. I can create a greater sense of kindness and peace and compassion within myself, and through that affect my family and my community. I think it is important that we learn how to cultivate this, because I think it's actually the most important thing that we should work on. Outside of taking care of our families and our jobs, I think perhaps more important is first recognizing that there's a way that we can create a sense of ease and peacefulness and calm, so that we can do our jobs better, so that we can relate to each other better, so that when we're at school, we know how to resolve conflict and things like that.
Right. How has your perspective on yoga changed as a student and as a teacher now? Like how has the perspective changed? Has it changed, and has it been fulfilling for you? Was it a worthwhile, rewarding experience for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's like anything. There's challenges. But really, it's just what we're really just talking about is sort of the journey of our life, right? So it's not like I became someone who teaches yoga and now everything's changed and I don't have to do any work anymore, and I don't have to study, or I don't have challenges in my life. I don't have relationships in my life. So it's just part of my journey as a human being, right? And I have a few tools and a few skills from what I learned as a yoga practice that I can implement into my life, that I can share with people, and that allow me to work with whatever it is that arises in my life more intelligently, more creatively, and more peacefully.
Okay, so after after going through all experiences by inner peace and love and kindness, would you do the CFL again if you had the chance with your information?
I don't have any regrets about my life. It's all part of the process of me growing and me changing as a person. And I'm very grateful and thankful for all the opportunities that I had as a youth to play the game that I loved, and to share it with family and friends around the country, and to make a living playing a sport. Like that's pretty amazing. That's insane, right? So it was a dream come true, and I'm so grateful to everyone who provided me those opportunities. And now I'm grateful that I've come into a new path and have another way of serving my community and of making a living and doing all the things that we need to do.
Well, thank you for coming to our studio. This has been Interfaith Dialogue on RPTV. My name is Josh. I'll be your host. But we're signing out. Thank you so much.